Hi everyone, welcome to Lunchtime Live at the Tijuana River National Estuarine Research Reserve. If you're just joining me here at the Tijuana Estuary, my name is Marya and I am an interpreter, education specialist here at the Tijuana River National Estuarine Research Reserve. And I'm coming to you today live at lunchtime live from our visitor center. If you're coming into the room, feel free to say hi. Just give me a thumbs up. I'm happy to have you today and see you join me during your lunchtime here at the Tijuana Estuary. So I'm here at the Tijuana Estuary. A little bit about the visitor center. We are still closed. Our parking lot is closed, our restrooms are closed, and some of our trails are closed. But I'm fortunate enough to be here and provide this lunchtime live with you as we dive into native nectar sources for hummingbirds. And if you've joined me the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to bring to you some of what's blooming here at the Tijuana Estuary, what's thriving right now. Now, before we get started, I just hope that everyone is safe and doing well out there as we all shelter in place. I get to be here, but I've been following all those guidelines, and I thank you for doing the same. I'm washing my hands with soap and water often, and for 20 seconds. I've been keeping a 6-foot physical distance and wearing facial coverings when I'm carrying out essential business. So I really thank you all for doing the same and for working together so we can all flatten the curve and get back out into our parks when it's safe to do so. Now, some of you who are just joining us, or if you're joining us later, I wanted to share some nectar sources, some flowering plants, native plants that are friendly for hummingbirds. And I hope that this is something that you'll benefit from as you might be planning for your gardens, and maybe also an opportunity for you to share with us any hummingbird friendly plants that you might have or know about. And you can do this in the comments. You can do this with an image throughout the program or later if you're watching later. So I'm here at the visitor center and I want to share 3 plants with you today, and we're going to take a walk around. So hi Anne-Marie, nice to see you there. Feel free to say hi if you're joining us here on Tuesday at the Tijuana Estuary Visitor Center at noontime for Lunchtime Live, and I hope to make this a regular series. So the first plant I want to show you today, I'm standing here behind the visitor center. Okay. And I'm gonna flip the camera around. I was out here a couple of weeks ago and we talked about some native versus non-native, and I'm back out here again behind the visitor center. Maybe not an area a lot of you are familiar with, but maybe some of you are. And the plant I want to show you right now is just to my right, so I'm going to turn the camera around and take you over to our first plant, our first native nectar source for hummingbirds. I'm going to take you over here. Now, this is a plant called fuchsia flowering gooseberry. Fuchsia flowering gooseberry. Say that 3 times fast. Anyone heard of fuchsia flowering gooseberry? Now, when I saw this plant last week, it was in a very different state. It was a lot more green, but it's starting to shut down already. And fuchsia flowering gooseberry, also called Ribes speciosum, is a shrubby plant here. It's the only one here, found in more of the chaparral in Southern California and maybe even into Baja a little bit. And I want to show you first the leaves. Although we're talking about native nectar sources, I want to show you the leaves of the fuchsia flowering gooseberry. And I'm going to show you the ones here that are still green. This was very, very green last week, and you see they have a dark, very glossy green leaf there. Very smooth there, and sort of rounded. Yep. leaf shape there. No scent to this leaf. I'm smelling that leaf, and that's one way you can check for scent, is to rub the leaf and smell gently, or put your nose up to it. But what do we see here? So we're looking for nectar sources. Nectar is found in the flower, right? So what do we know about hummingbirds? What are they attracted to? Does anyone know what they are attracted to? What color are they attracted to? Red, yes, red. Sometimes we see our hummingbird feeders, actually a lot of hummingbird feeders are red in color, and that's not an accident. It's because hummingbirds are attracted to red. So the flowers of the fuchsia flowering gooseberry here, which the light, oh, I hear, oh my goodness, there's a, I had a hummingbird kind of buzz me here. So it's saying, get out of the way, it's lunchtime. So here I am, red, that's right, red, and this one here is not quite red, almost red, but a pink. And I apologize if this is tough to see, but there we go, our fuchsia flowering gooseberry flower hanging down like little bells almost, somewhat elongated. So kind of somewhat elongated, meaning longer, tubular, narrow. So you imagine that the hummingbirds, which are really good at hovering, they're able to put their beaks into that flower for that nectar source. Nectar. What is nectar? Anyone want to share what is nectar? So a lot of nectar. Our hummingbirds need a lot of nectar. They have very high metabolisms. They buzz around really fast, so they need a lot of nectar. Nectar, if you're joining us later, what is nectar? It's the sugar water that plants make, found in the flowers. So there we are, fuchsia flowering gooseberry, or Ribes speciosum. You see now the leaves are turning red. Anything else that you might see on this plant? If you were to decide to plant this at home, this would be something you'd want to be a little bit cautious of, because can you see what else it has besides leaves and flowers? Hummingbird, the hummingbird that just buzzed me was an Anna's hummingbird. That one is fairly common, very common in Southern California. We have those here. But I don't know if you can see in there the spines on the stem of this plant. Fuchsia flowering gooseberry. And this is the only one we have here. And it lives fairly short. It is a perennial, very pokey, yes. Very pokey, you want to be careful. And those soft, glossy leaves kind of hide those spines, so you definitely want to be careful. This is a plant that flowers in the late winter to spring, okay? And does go summer deciduous, where the leaves will fall. So that's our fuchsia flowering gooseberry. How many of you have ever heard of a fuchsia flowering gooseberry? Yeah, and if you haven't been to the visitor center, or if you have been to the visitor center, this one might be hard to find because it's behind the visitor center, a little bit off trail. So I want to take us to our second plant. I'm going to take us to our second native nectar source for hummingbirds, and this one is around the front of the visitor center. So I'm going to take you on a little walk. I hope you don't mind going on a little walk. So I will turn the camera around for those of you, since we're all sheltering in place. Hopefully you appreciate this walk as I take us around the visitor center here. All right. Okay. Now I said Anna's hummingbirds are found here at the Tijuana estuary. There's Rufus and Allens. They're a lot more rare. Okay, those are some other species found in San Diego, and I'm going to take us around to the visitor center here. And let me guess, the next plant that we're going to be seeing is a hummingbird plant. Anyone want to guess what color it might be, the flowers might be for this one? If you're joining us later, we are here at the Tijuana Estuary looking at native nectar sources for hummingbirds found around the visitor center. And I'm taking us to right in front of the visitor center where we will look at a plant called hummingbird sage. How many of you have heard of hummingbird sage? How many of you have heard of sage? So here is our hummingbird. Very good. Yes, red flowers, red or pink, and here our hummingbird sage plant mixed in here with some other native species that you might recognize. Our hummingbird sage is this one that grows more like a stalk. And you can see the flower heads at the top here and the flowers themselves, that nectar source for hummingbirds there. This tubular shaped flower. Trying to get a good view there. Tubular shaped again. Why tubular shaped? Why do hummingbirds, why are they able to take advantage of nectar from flowers that are tubular shaped? If we think about the beak of a hummingbird, long, they're really designed, some of the only species designed to get the nectar out of the base of that flower. So this is our hummingbird sage. If you know sages, sages are in the mint family, and they often will have a smell. So I'm rubbing the leaf of the hummingbird sage. You can feel, maybe you can imagine that kind of leathery feeling. It's a little sticky. That's probably because it has an oil on there. Yes, their long tongue is the only thing that will fit down into the base of that tubular flower to get out that nectar. Very good, Sunny. All right, so now I'm smelling my fingers here, and this hummingbird sage, like other sages, has a scent. It's kind of fruity. And I want to see all these these little hummingbird sages that are popping up here. I see quite a few of them, and then I want to take you to another one here. That is flower. This one has the most flowers. So you can see that bright pink, tubular shaped. When these are all in bloom, it's quite dramatic and beautiful. And you might recognize there it's growing in and among this yellow flower, yellow sunflower, bush sunflower, you might remember from a couple of weeks ago. If not, search our videos and you can learn more about that yellow flower there. So that's our hummingbird sage. And like sages in the mint family, one of the dominant characteristics is the square stem. So we can see the square stem here with hairs, a lot of hairs here on this one. Hummingbird sage, Salvia spathacea. Salvia spathacea. Hummingbird sage. And oh yeah, the yellow flower there, not brittle bush, but Encilia californica, or bush sunflower. So maybe brittle bush would be a common name as well for it, but Encilia californica. Good guess though. All right, so that's our hummingbird sage. Yes, hi Anne, good to see you there. Thanks for joining us. Hi Bob, nice to see you there. Thanks for joining us. So we've got our hummingbird sage there Salvia spicaceae. And unlike a lot of other sages that grow more in a bush, kind of like our last one there, our ribes, this is grows more of in a stalk. And these will last a bit longer, especially if you give them water. So they're flowering late winter, spring, and they'll go deciduous, means the leaves will brown and fall in the drier months, but if you give them a little water, they react well. So that is our hummingbird sage out here in the front of the visitor center, and we're going to go for another walk. I'll show you. So we are going to go for another walk. I'd like to take you to an even further in front of the visitor center around the corner, where we have our last flowering native nectar source for hummingbirds. And this one is very abundant here at the Tijuana Estuary. So if you've been here before, you might recognize it. I'll take us on a walk. As we go on our walk, feel free to share like any of the hummingbird plants that you are familiar with. You are welcome to share, if you're joining us later, in the comments below, any hummingbird plants that you're familiar with or any questions about these plants. Also, you can share with images. We'd love to see what plants you have as nectar sources for hummingbirds. Okay? And all right, so we're going to go for a walk and take us around the visitor center. Hopefully you appreciate this walk as we take a walk around, since these trails here are actually closed. And since we're all sheltering in place and really not going out too much except for essential business, a walk like this might be appreciated. Now we see it's a beautiful sunny day here. It was not like this when I arrived this morning. Quite overcast, cloudy, but it has burned off and we are here, the sun out, and you might notice that this trail is closed. It is where I am, but we're gonna step over that because the next plant, our last native nectar source, is just around the corner here in our native plant garden that was established in 1998 when I first started here. Yes, I helped with the plant list for this area. So we're here. Those of you that might recognize this, our trails are very overgrown since our volunteer crew that normally helps us is unable to work right now, but habitat is thriving here, and I want to show us this plant, this giant red bush to my left. Yes, are those sage leaves edible on the hummingbird sage? That is a great question. I don't know. I'll have to look that one up. Maybe somebody else in the room knows. That's on right now. I don't know. And maybe that is a song to sparrows singing. I'm sorry, I can hear the helicopters and I'm concentrating, so I'm not hearing it so much, but yes, we do need a park champion work day. We'll need a lot of those once it's safe to do so. So this is our Baja snapdragon, Galvesia junca, Baja snapdragon. You see here, this is quite a thick, woody bush, shrub here at the Tijuana Estuary. This is found actually in northern Baja. It's endemic to northern Baja. We have it planted here. You can find it at native plant nurseries. And let's take a look at Baja snapdragon. And we're gonna get a closer look. Yes, doing my best to zoom in here to Baja snapdragon. And you'll see, first off, this is a species that has very slender but abundant stems. Quite a lot of stems here on this, making it very thick. You could plant this like a hedge, you know, a break, a windbreak, or a border. And also, you'll see here, it is flowering prolifically with its, again, what color are these flowers? It's red, tubular shaped flowers. And yes, it's a bit grainy here. Sort of depends on the device I'm using. Today, this phone I'm using is not doing very well for focusing. And I apologize. But you might be able to see there that it looks like, again, see that tubular shape, but at the opening there, oh, oops, at the opening there we go. Looks a little bit like a mouth, huh? Yep, looks like a little mouth there, inviting that hummingbird to pull that nectar out deep inside this tubular shaped flower of the Baja snapdragon. So other native pollinators that help, or native pollinating plants, is that a question? What other plants? Well, we have, we have our hummingbird sage that we just visited, and earlier we saw the fuchsia flowered gooseberry, and that also has those red dangling shaped flowers with the stamens protruding. So here we have a longer tubular shape, okay, with the nectar in the middle or down in the bottom. So that's our Baja snapdragon. Now this one will bloom all year. They will bloom all year, especially if you give them water. It really is like an evergreen. Let's look at those leaves. They're tiny, tiny leaves on the hummingbird sage. Very tiny. Almost looks like it doesn't have any leaves. Almost looks like just like stems. Okay, and we can see they're a bit, maybe a bit fuzzy. Can we see the hairs? Tough, tough, tough. Yes, thank you for sharing that hummingbird sage leaves and flowers are used by in teas and medicines. I know a lot of the other sages are too. I just didn't know about hummingbirds specifically, hummingbird sage, but I do know hummingbirds like them. All right, so that's our Baja snapdragon. Again, endemic to northern Baja, but does really well here. Are any other insects, bees, butterflies, or any other birds that are native pollinators? Yes, there are lots of native pollinators here at the Tijuana estuary that visit us. Just highlighting a few of the hummingbird species, hummingbird-friendly plants today. Yes, but our Encilia californica, which we learned about a couple weeks ago, that's definitely a bee pollinator there. Yes, very good. Small leaves, less evaporation transfer. This is right. Yeah, so a lot of plants lose water through their leaves, so they are able to retain more water if they have smaller leaves, which allows them to thrive green a lot longer through the dry season. So very good. So that's our Baja snapdragon. Right? Baja snapdragon. So let us recap. I'm going to give you guys a view out there today. Beautiful day out here at the Tijuana estuary. So if you're joining us later for this, please share any of the hummingbird plants that you might be familiar with. Maybe you have some in your yard, in your garden, and you'd like to share them with us. We would love to see them. We would love to see your hummingbird plants, and maybe you even have pictures of hummingbirds taking food from the nectar from your plants. That's always fun to see, to watch. And again, these are some excellent plants that you could use in your own yard, that you could get from native plant nurseries, that are a wonderful alternate source to hummingbird feeders and supporting wildlife with habitat. So I hope you enjoyed this program today, Native Nectar Sources for Hummingbirds. And it's been wonderful sharing this with you as we all sort of shelter in place, and this is our way of reaching out to you and sharing this place that we are protecting and wanting to share with everyone for the health of our planet as we approach Earth Day tomorrow. So thank you so much, and it's been wonderful, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you can join us for some more of these. Join us for our virtual programs on our Ports page, California Ports program, as well as our Instagram page. And when it's safe to do so, we'll see you back in the park. Thank you. Have a great day.